Yeah, welcome everyone to one of our first real big hardware events and talks. We haven't done anything like this in quite a few years. And well, I think it's going to be a lot of fun to play with these the rest of the day, but I'm really happy to get this talk started. This is Gregor Richards. He's a lecturer in computer science. His research area is programming languages, but he is definitely here to talk about history. And the title of his talk is Unearthed or Exhumed, Obscure Computing and Gaming Trash and or Treasure. So thank you, Gregor, for getting started.
Good morning. I am Gregor Richards. I teach here. Probably many of you already knew that. What you may or may not have known is that I have a bit of an obsession with sort of obscure computing stuff. This is actually video glasses, but it's actually obscuring my vision. That's not the kind of obscure I was going for. There we go, that's better. That was just a visual gag about Google Glass. That's all that was. The only reason I brought these video glasses is to make a visual gag. This is the setup, and this is the punchline. I'm not even going to talk about these. I'm not even going to talk about Google Glass. I brought a second pair of video glasses so that I could make this sub-joke within the larger joke about Google Glass, about how I'm the kind of person who has to choose among my 5 or 10 pairs of video glasses which one to use to make a silly joke about Google Glass. I'm not going to talk about these video glasses either. The video glasses are boring. They're not, but they are, because I'd rather talk about this. So I have a bit of an obsession with obscure computing things, but it's actually a little bit more precise than that. It's not history, sorry, it's not even necessarily vintage things. It's a little bit hard to articulate exactly what my interest is, but this device articulates it really well. Basically, I like devices that flew too close to the sun. They tried to be more than they really could possibly be, and they reached for the stars and ended up in an unstable orbit and then burnt up on re-entry into the atmosphere. That's what actually happens if you shoot for the stars and miss. Sorry. So this is the Nokia N-Gage. This is from 2003, and it is a game console. It is a game console. This is Shadow Key, the Elder Scrolls Travel Shadow Key. So this is the boxes that the games came in. The games were on MMC cards. MMC cards are the predecessor to SD cards. So, well, they look like SD cards. But none of that is really the interesting part. What I said is I like devices that flew too close to the sun. So this is a game console, but it's also a phone, and it's also an MP3 player, and it's also a PDA. If anybody in the audience is too young, PDAs is what we called smartphones before they were phones. But this actually is a phone, so I guess it's a smartphone. Anyway, so the thing that really flew too close to the sun about the Nokia N-Gage is that every one of its features fights with every other one of its features. So it's designed to be held in the hand. It's designed so that you can reach this D-pad here, and number pad is the best for controlling video games, but that's over where it's on the right. But because it's designed to be a game console and not really a phone, well, the speaker for the phone is up at the top, and the microphone is down here, and to talk on it, you hold it like this, which looks extremely normal, and in no way like you're a psychopath. So the phone feature is kind of compromised by the game feature, but it does work as a phone. So how about the gaming? Well, this is from the era of the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. Nintendo sucks. Their portable game systems are all terrible. They played this trick of like, well, we can be horribly obsolete in all of our technology because we basically don't have any competitors. And the competitors, like, this is a 3D gaming system, and it actually worked really well. Like, it would do 3D. So let's talk about using it as a gaming system. So it is a phone and a gaming system. So how do you change the game? I'm looking for like a cartridge port. I don't see a cartridge port. Oh, of course, because it's built like a phone. So to change the game, there's my MMC card, but you can't actually get it out because you have to get the battery out of the way. So if you want to switch to a different game, first you have to remove the battery, because that's what you want to do when you're trying to switch quickly between games. And then sort of, you have to press down there and sort of pull out the game. Then you can get out your other game. I happen to have grabbed Tomb Raider, and you sort of have to get the angle right and get it in there. And then you put the battery back in. Of course, you took the battery out, so it's off now. And then it is a phone, so when you boot it, it first has to boot like a phone operating system. So we gotta wait for the Nokia logo. Yeah, you gotta. Then it says engage. It's asking for the time just because, of course, the battery's been dead for years. There we go. And then, let's see, we have to go to one of these menus. That's settings. This is not just me joking, I genuinely don't remember how to actually start the game. Is it that? No, that's the point is that the ergonomics of a phone make this a really terrible game system, and the ergonomics of a game system make this a really terrible phone. And it's really kind of upsetting because they actually did a really good job of designing the hardware. This is a good 3D game console. I would demonstrate that genuinely. I don't remember how to actually. I'm not even making this part up. Oh, wait, that was the menu. Okay, and then we scroll down and there it is. There you go. Then you can wait for the game to load, and then you can. Anyway, so it is like it's a powerful game system. You'll notice it has a vertical aspect ratio. That's also really bad. Vertical aspect ratio. It's fine if the game was made for it, but. This is Tomb Raider. It was made for a 4x3 screen, and having it all, it's like you're wearing blinders. It's not a good way to design a video game. They made a port, I tragically don't have this game, they made a port of Sonic to this system, like the original Sonic games, and obviously it can't be played vertically at all, because you're going fast. That's what Sonic's about, it's going fast. And so you can't see anything. And so it has a mode to switch to 4x3 letterboxed within this 3x4 screen. So your Sonic is about like 6 pixels tall. There was clearly no thought as to, is this actually usable as any of these things? Well, okay, fine. So it's being a phone makes it a bad game system, and being a game system makes it a bad phone. But I said it was 4 things. It's a phone, it's a game system, it's an MP3 player, it's a PDA. Is it a good MP3 player? Well, where is the, oh, there it is. So here's the ports for audio. It's impossible to tell from here, of course, but these are those annoying small ports that are only used by phones. So if you have like a normal pair of headphones, they won't plug into it. So you need an adapter. So being a phone also ruins it as an MP3 player. Great job, Nokia. How about as a PDA? Well, it uses the input style, if you remember it, where you just like press 2-3 times to get a C. That's how we had to input things in the early 2000s. Except that because the number pad is over here on the right, like a normal phone, you would use both thumbs to input, and it was much faster. And here you can't really. So yeah, they've also managed to ruin that. So every part of this device ruins every other part of this device, and that is what I love in obscure hardware. They tried so hard that the very act of trying made them fail in the most spectacular ways possible. So that's the Nokia N-Gage. That was what I wanted to start with. but I do have plenty of other obscure gubbins over here to talk about. This is the Microsoft Zune. That's the correct response to the Microsoft Zune. I didn't pay for this. This is Microsoft Research emblazoned. This was a free gift when they, realized that no one wanted the Microsoft Zune, so they just sort of tossed it off on whichever interns would take them. That's literally all I'm going to talk about this Zune. It's not interesting enough to mention. Here's a much more interesting device. This is probably one of my favorite possessions. I love this thing. This is the HP 200LX. Just to give a timeline, N-Gage, that's from 2003. This is from 1993. So this is a palm top PC. And when I say PC, I do mean PC. This runs DOS. You can make this run Windows 3.0 if you're, slightly masochistic. And, well, it's from 1993, which was very early in the era of PDAs. It is, of course, not quite trying to be a PDA, but the thing that's so amusing to me about this device, like I said, it runs MS-DOS, but what were the killer features? What was it that they thought, oh, people are going to be doing this on there? Well, obviously, Pocket Quicken, because everybody wants to do their taxes in a palm top. And Lotus 123 with CC Mail. Lotus 123 is a spreadsheet. Did accountants like, you know what, it's really efficient for me to get my spreadsheets done on like a desktop computer, but what I'd love is a tiny keyboard. It does have a numpad, you would expect with a spreadsheet being a killer feature, but I want to enter my spreadsheets. Like, why was that their highlighted features? And it comes with a text editor. You could imagine editing text on this device. Well, I mean, it comes with a text editor because it comes with Microsoft DOS and Microsoft. It doesn't come with a text editor, but it accidentally comes with a text editor, which you can get to and can use. And it comes with an address book. That makes sense. It comes with, contact list, all that kind of stuff. But they seem to have been targeting this at a market that you have to imagine not only didn't exist, but couldn't exist. Why is that their killer feature? Why do you care about Pocket Quicken? Why does there exist a piece of software called Pocket Quicken? No one wanted that. It is actually a pretty good device if you just ignore this and just run it as a DOS machine. The aspect ratio, DOS at the time was 4:3. This is, I don't know, like 15:1 or something. It's ridiculously wide. It is actually CGA. It's standard DOS graphics. It's CGA, which is color, so it just displays the colors as shades of gray. But it has shades of gray. It's not just black and white. It has shades of gray. So you can use it for games if you want your games like really stretched out. It only has a PC speaker, so your games are also going to be very bleepity. But it works. It's actually quite a good device. I just can't quite figure out what they were trying to do. What were they trying to accomplish? By the way, CC Mail. So, of course, we've got the mystery port here, where if you had infinity billion dollars, you could get a modem for it and do online stuff. Oh, let's see, which am I gonna, let's select something that's slightly boring next. The Nokia 770 internet tablet. This should have battery. Yeah, look at that. I seem to have a grudge against Nokia or something. I keep selecting Nokia things. Nokia just did a really good job of making really strange stuff. So, just a second, I'm gonna grab some batteries. I feel like I can better demonstrate the 200LX by actually turning it on. But the 770 internet tablet, unfortunately, it's a little bit too recent to be all that interesting. I'm wearing last panel am I talking about, but this is something like 2007 or something like that. It's like practically modern. But the interesting thing about it is that it unabashedly runs Linux, and you can just compile your own software for it, which, you know, like Android runs Linux, but quite abashedly runs Linux. It doesn't really want you to know that this is trying to be like a grown-up computer. It's really, you know, it's trying to present itself as a Fisher-Price computer. This is, you know, it's presenting itself more like a grown-up computer. But ultimately, I don't have that much to say about it, mainly because, of course, you can't connect it to Wi-Fi anymore because it's like 6 Wi-Fi standards old, and even if you could, it's like 6 TLS standards old, so you can't connect to any web pages. But, you know, it's kind of interesting that they, in their sort of bumbling attempt to compete with Apple's iPhone and the Google Android phones, decided to make a not phone. This isn't a phone, by the way. It's by Nokia. It's not a phone. Did I mention that? It's not a phone. So they were going to compete with smartphones with a not phone. I'm not quite sure what the goal there was. But again, that's really the thing that's obscure that I love. What were they trying to do? They saw the advent of smartphones and they went, nah, that'll never take off. We're going to make an internet tablet that's too small to be a tablet. It's too small to read here, that's for sure. Just another case of, I'm not quite sure what they were thinking. This should now have batteries. Now we're talking. This is not going to be visible, is it? Oh, no, focus button. I've got just some random games and such installed on this. What I forgot is that if you have a large disk, because of how DOS works, when you first try to list the files, it takes forever. I just wanted to make the point that it will indeed load normal DOS games. This is stunts. Well, this will be stunts once it loads. I did not remember it taking this long to load, I'm going to be honest. I'll just leave that loading while I grab the next thing. Yeah! I actually can't get the batteries out, and yet it did turn off when I opened the battery cover. So yeah, only a PC speaker. That wasn't a useful demonstration. This was never intended to be a gaming device. It was for taxes on the go or something. So the fact that it's, you know, a little bit limited as a gaming device is maybe not that surprising. Oh, I already moved it over. Back to a gaming device, though. This is possibly the worst game console ever made. So this is the Tiger Gamecom. This is from 1997. It was a competitor to the Game Boy, of course, the original Game Boy, and I think the Game Boy Color within its lifetime. Nice big screen, really low resolution, like competing with, it's about the same as the original Game Boy. But here's the really interesting thing about the Gamecom. It's a touchscreen. It's a touchscreen. Oh, by the way, it says game.com, but it's Gamecom. I don't know why they would actually put a dot in the logo and then insist that that's not part of the name. And also, the reason it's called the Gamecom is because, yeah, once again, it's got a modem. Why? So, you know, if you wanted a game console with a modem for reading your emails. But here's the really fun thing about the Gamecom. So it is basically just a normal game console, you know, standard controls, D-pad. It has a touchscreen. Almost none of the games use that. I don't know if this will be visible. There's a grid you can see on the screen. Well, you can't see, but from the right angle, you can see a grid on the screen. Each touchpad area is about like half a centimeter wide. It's not a useful touchscreen. You can't get anything precise with it. It's actually kind of insulting that they included a stylus for a touchscreen that imprecise. Anyway, so the screen is really low res, it's really slow. Here's the thing though, the game console was very inexpensive, and clearly, like by design, it was intended for like puzzle games, that kind of thing. The screen has a really slow, it's like really ghosty, it effectively has a really slow refresh rate. So you wouldn't want to put any particularly active games on it. It came with a game called Lights Out. If you remember the hardware game Lights Out, it's a puzzle game. So naturally, you would expect that they knew, well, obviously you can't have like fast active games on this very slow, very ghosty screen. So they wouldn't have games like, say, Indy 500 or Sonic, or maybe this will be visible through the bubble wrap, Resident Evil 2. You wouldn't want Resident Evil 2 for a black and white ghosty screen. Duke Nukem 3D. This is a rail shooter. This isn't Duke Nukem 3D. It's a rail shooter that they put the name Duke Nukem 3D on, which ultimately was probably their best idea because yeah, you don't want that on this device that is markedly worse than a Game Boy. The really strange thing about this device isn't the device itself. I think it's quite clear that the creators knew they were making a device for like puzzle games. This sold for like $40. So you could buy, and there were puzzle game cartridges for it. And so, this is something to buy your mom for her birthday so she can play games while she's, not doing something else, whatever. It's not, it's not this, but these are most of the games they made. Why? By the way, this, I think, has the honor of being the first Sonic game for a non-Sega system. Tiger had the license to Sonic for like these terrible LCD games that were even worse than this somehow, and they just like abused that license to port the original Sonic to their system. So I think this came out before there was Sonic N for some other portable game system. I think this came out before that, so this is actually the first Sonic game for a non-Sega system, and it's bad. It's real bad. Once again, I of course have not prepared ahead and put in the batteries. I do think I need to demonstrate to you exactly how terrible playing Sonic on a device like this is. So if you'll excuse my poor planning, I am going to quickly throw in some more batteries here. Took it out of the box, how dare I? Data found! So that said Gamecom active. Where even is the volume control? Anyway, it says Gamecom, that's the only part I wanted to point out right there. The screen has various issues, but actually that's coming across pretty clearly.
That's clear, that's the problem.
Did I put this in cartridge port 2? Why won't you play the game? Oh, there we go. You have to press it over and over again, I guess. So let's see how good Sonic is on. That was the contrast. No wonder that became invisible. There we go. Let's play Sonic 2. You wanted this on a black and white screen, right? To play Sonic. And I mean, yeah, it's as bad as I said it was. I can see nothing. Look at that frame rate. Oh, that's what you want in a game that's about speed. So yeah, this console is just bizarre because they must have known it couldn't possibly run the only games they wanted to put on it, but they did. By the way, this game console actually has a really good music chip. It can make very high quality music, and all of the games sound like they were written for the original IBM PC. It's just like horrible beeps. I don't know why. I don't know why. There are some games that sound really good because it has a very good music chip, and Sonic just goes. I mean, presumably, whatever poor sod they hired to build out Sonic went, no one's going to want to play this. I am not going to take the time to make the music sound good. I think, yes, this is the last thing I'm actually going to bother to introduce. I don't know if I had a specific timeline. I'm aiming for 30 minutes. Hopefully that's fine. Whoa. Top view is probably the right view for this. So this is a Famiclone. If you don't know the term, so Famicom is the Japanese name for the original Nintendo Entertainment System. So in China, this is a Chinese device, in China there were a lot of clones of the original Famicom. In fact, you can still buy them today. Quite often today they come with like every NES game pirated just right on the ROM. This is from, probably the late 90s. But, it's a Famiclone. It maybe doesn't seem that exciting to have a Famiclone, but basically, if you've got any Famicom games, like Alien vs. Predator, or World of Warcraft, popular Famicom game, World of Warcraft, of course. So here it is, World of Warcraft. I can't read Chinese, but I assume that's World of Warcraft, the card does. Then it'll play standard Famicom games. So why am I telling you about a boring Famiclone? So here's the floppy disks that came with it, and here's the mouse that came with it, and here's the keyboard that came with it, and I lied to you, this is a computer that's built around the NES. It comes with, it boots to a DOS simulacrum. It kind of looks like MS-DOS. It obviously isn't MS-DOS because it really is running the original 6502 processor from an NES. And it even comes with a Windows 95 simulacrum. It of course has no multi-programming. You can't run multiple programs at once, but it sort of pretends to be Windows 95. It has a start menu, and like I said, it has a mouse. Even stranger, you might think that, you plug in the mouse and the keyboard to the controller ports. These are standard NES. No, actually, these are weird. I have no idea what these controller ports are. No, of course, it has a serial port for the mouse. And here's the printer port, standard parallel printer port if you wanted to plug a parallel printer into your Nintendo keyboard. This was the late 1990s. It's not exactly known when this was, but I could grab that Model M over there, like a IBM XT's keyboard, and plug it into here. Why was that the standard they used instead of PS2? I don't know, it was cheaper probably. And then of course you have composite output, because composite is what you want on a PC. And yeah, this is a straight, by the way, this is a floppy drive emulator on the side. It of course originally came with a floppy drive, like I said, it came with floppies. And those floppies had things like, actually not going to reopen this, had things like a word processor, paint program, that kind of thing. But judging by the manual, the main thing, the main thrust of this device, again, I can't read Chinese, so I can't really read most of the manual, but just judging by the sections of the manual, the main thrust of this device was to be a typing tutor, which is good. This is a really good keyboard. It is genuinely a very good keyboard. The feel on the keys is really pleasant, which is, quite a statement for this device, for a Nintendo with a keyboard. Well, that's because they wanted you to use it for typing training. Now, I don't read Chinese. I have spoken to people who know how to type in Chinese, and so there have been various methods of typing in Chinese. One of the most lovely things about this is that the method this uses isn't used anymore, by my understanding. So if you were a kid and you learned to type Chinese this way, oops, you wasted your time anyway, because that's not how it's done, whoops. But they also have some English lessons, or some English typing tests. So I want to end this by just reading one of their more brilliant English typing lessons. A tortoise, dissatisfied with his lowly life, when he beheld so many of the birds, his neighbors, disporting themselves, that is actually a word, in the clouds, and thinking that if he could but once get into the air, he could soar with the best of them. God, that's still a comma. How long is this run-on sentence? Called one day upon an eagle and offered him all the treasure of ocean, capital O, I guess that's the name for the world's ocean, okay? If he could only teach him to fly, space, period, no space. The eagle would have declined the task, assuring him that the thing was not only absurd, but impossible, semicolon instead of comma, but missing comma, being further pressed by the entreaties, abject promises of the tortoise, he at length consented to do for him the best he could, space, period, no space. Stoticking him up to a great height in the air and loosing his hold upon him, period. I guess that was a complete sentence. Sure, why not? Now then, cried the eagle, semicolon, insert comma, but missing comma. The tortoise, before he could answer him a word, fell plump upon a rock and was dashed to pieces, space, period. Pride shall have a fall. Pride seemed more like jealousy, but okay. So if you wanted to learn to type in English and not actually learn English, because obviously the creator of the manual didn't, it could do that too. And I will just mention that is the last thing I'm going to show. No one, to my knowledge, has cracked the executable format for this device. It does take executables on a floppy disk that are named .exe. No one has figured it out yet. So if anybody wants to take a crack at that, talk to me. I would love to break this thing open a little bit further. Those are the devices I brought. I actually have a whole collection more. These are just the ones that I thought would be the most interesting. As you can see, they're not all very vintage, but they are all very, very strange. That's all I've got. If you want to take a closer look at any of the devices, I'll be around for a while. And I guess if you have any questions now, I can answer them. I doubt that there's that kind of question, but thank you. I can answer those. Yep.
So in '93, I was working at Sun Microsystems, and the cool thing then was the Newton.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And that looks something like your HP thing.
Yeah. This was certainly trying to compete with the Newton. No touchscreen, of course. Let's not be ridiculous. But I never had a Newton. Would love to have a Newton. I doubt that they were, particularly trying to say, like, this is the best way to do your taxes on the Apple Newton.
So you don't have a Newton?
I don't have a Newton.
Oh, wow, okay.
I just may point out we have a Newton in our display cabinet just on the other side of the hall.
Oh, wow.
If you find the glass broken in the Newton gone.
And all I can say is that while I was at Sun Labs and they were buying these Newtons, it was absolutely clear that they were useless.
Right, yeah. So a lot of the, flying too close to the sun is, computing is advanced so quickly, quite often a company can see, this is going to be the way. In a few years, everyone will want this. We can't build that now, but I guess we'll try! And you end up with something like this that's, I can see the idea. Who wanted this? That actually applies to the Google Glass, too. Yeah?
Have you turned the Famicom clone, or have you turned that on? Have you
Oh yeah. I've used this extensively. I've imaged all the disks. I have attempted at a very minimal level to figure out what the exe format might be. No clue. It's obviously proprietary to good old Subor, well-known computer manufacturer.
So you can get these? You can still buy these today?
I've acquired these over many, many years. Certainly the SP2000 is not still being made. They still make Famiclones, but not like this whole computer one.
How much was that at the time?
I probably spent, certainly more than I should have. I probably spent like $200 for that, just because I had to like contact somebody in China to get it imported and all that. In China, in the late 1990s, it probably cost, you know, pittance.
Yeah.
Any other?
It's nowadays $35 Canadian dollars in China.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Combined with the delivery fee and.
Yeah, actually getting it imported. And so also this was like, the seller had already, you know, analyzed it and made sure it worked and stuff. It was worth it to pay that much because I'm a lunatic, but it's not actually worth that much of the device. Any other questions? Going once, going twice? Okay, thank you very much. That's it for today.
Fantastic, thank you very much. I'm just kind of amazed that sort of we're seeing all these different pieces of, there's gaming and there's mobile computing and then within like what, when does the iPhone come out?
2009.
2008, 2009, it all kind of comes together at that point. We've got all these attempts. There's this explosion of ideas, and then it all just sort of comes together under the iPhone. It's sort of a fantastic demonstration of how an industry finally settles on an idea, the standard, but how they struggle for years to get something to work. That's a great kickoff for our event today, with all the different PCs and different form factors and all the different things. It's very reminiscent of the late 70s, early 80s when people were experimenting and trying to see what works. So again, thank you very much, Gregor. That was amazing. And please enjoy the rest of the day. We've got things up and running. I don't know if you're going to stick around and show some of these things off.
Yeah, I'll certainly be here at least until, you know, the early afternoon. I can talk about any of these if you'd like.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming to our first talk today for Hardware Day.